Tonya Fabian is our children's director, and she ministers to our first through fifth graders upstairs. And many of you know a little bit about her journey, but I wanted her to tell you because today's message is about stormy weather. Looks like God's also authenticated today's message with a little bit of rain, but that'll wash the pollen down, so you with allergies will be glad of that. But you know, sometimes we do go through storms, and Tonya was diagnosed with cancer. She's going to tell her story, but this will complement the message. We'll abbreviate that. But anyway, you might be in the middle of a storm, so I think you'll be able to identify. But give Tonya a big welcome back, will you? All right. Yes, you need a mic, don't you? Hello. Sorry.
Thank you. Good morning. And it's good to see everybody here today and to even be here. When Pastor asked me if I would think about giving my story, I first was like, I don't know about that. But as I got to thinking about it, I think it was important that you all see where I was and where I am now and what God's going to do. And so I decided that I would tell my story. Now, it is still fresh and raw, and I'm emotional, so just bear with me. First of all, I'm going to share a story. Growing up, we spent many hours as a family on Lake Murray, swimming and camping and boating. I don't know if you've ever been on the lake when a storm has come up, but it can come up just like that, and you don't want to be on the lake. Well, our family has been in a few storms on Lake Murray, and I want to share one of those stories. And then I'm going to relate it in the end. My grandfather lived on Lake Murray and had a pontoon. One afternoon, they were having a church outing at their house, and a group of ladies, children, and men, the pastor, my dad, and Grandpa, went out in the pontoon for some fun. I was on the boat, but I was quite young, and I don't remember this, but my daddy will never forget it. In an instant, just like that, in a blink of an eye, snap of a finger, a storm came up. The skies got extremely dark, and the wind started to fiercely blow the boat, and the waves billowed so high, like waves at the beach, in and over the boat. Everybody was able to get back into that boat, except the pastor and another fellow. The wind took their boat and pushed it away from them. They couldn't see them because it was so violently high with the waves, and it was dark clouds. The women, they huddled up in the front, and they had the children, and they got them down on the floor, and they covered them up with canvas, and they started to sing songs. Dad and Grandpa were just sure that that boat was going to capsize. The wind started to blow the boat in the direction that they needed to go, but they couldn't find the men. They thought that they were just going to drown. But the boat passed the preacher and the other fella, and they were holding on to a life jacket that had blown off of that boat. They were able to get them back on. The preacher said if it would have been just a little bit longer, they wouldn't have been able to hold on. God had that life jacket blow off that boat and go right past them. They were right across from Sandy Beach and Bombers Island, and they were able to steer the boat up to the land. The children got off onto the ground, and the men held that boat until the storm passed. Even in the midst of that violent, stormy storm, with the winds blowing, that dark sky, and the water sloshing up over that boat, God was right there with them, and He protected them. And that's what I see in my storm. So, I'm going to attempt to put into words God's faithfulness in the storm that our family is currently in. Just as quick as that storm came up on the lake, a storm hit our family. Starting in November, where I was dealing with what I thought was a sciatic nerve, turned out through a series of tests that on December the 20th, 5 days before Christmas, I received a call from my doctor to inform me that I had cancer. It didn't seem real. I mean, I felt like I was doing all the right things, eating fairly healthy, exercising, serving Jesus. When you hear the word cancer, and then metastatic cancer, and in my left hip, it's a paralyzing, frightening, panicky, and overwhelming fear. I would later have to deal with some of my thoughts and emotions, but Chad, he immediately started shedding tears. I had to call family and tell our children. When I called to tell Corey, he's my oldest, his words were, "Mom, let me pray." And he started to pray, and he had a hard time to finish that. But I am grateful that God is working in the lives of my children, and that's who they go to immediately in the midst of their storms. And he's working in my kids' lives. Well, quickly, I lost all use of my left leg, and I was in severely excruciating pain 24/7. I couldn't laugh, cough, or sneeze without extreme pain. We take for granted what our bodies can do until it's taken away. I literally would have to try not to sneeze, and I would tell don't laugh, don't make me laugh. We have some funny stories about that because laughter is good for healing. And I'm like, God, you know I need to laugh. But he was watching out for me. So Chad, he would have to help me from putting on my clothes and on my socks. I couldn't bend down. He had to slowly move my leg as I moved my body in the same direction to get in and out of the chair, the bed, and the bathroom. So I would have to move just like this, and he would have to hold it because I couldn't hold my leg up. My leg had to be propped up, and I could only lay on my back for months. Every time I had to get up to go to the restroom or anything, he had to get up with me to help me. My independence was stripped from me. One minute I was running, and if you ever watched me go up the stairs at Route 66, I usually hop up 2 to 3 steps at a time, to not being able to even move my leg without pain and help. I couldn't walk and lost all muscle. So why hope for cancer? In our own family, I watched as my grandfather and my mother-in-law battled their cancer. In 2018, Chad and I attended a conference at Healing Strong in Georgia, and Dr. Tonya, the founder of Hope for Cancer, was one of the speakers. As I was intrigued by his 7 key principles of cancer therapy, little did I know that at that time, God was preparing for me for the storm ahead. This is the route I would choose 4 years later. When we got the news of my diagnosis, I knew 100% that Hope for Cancer was where I wanted to go for treatment. Chad and I prayed and immediately put in action steps for admission, confident in God's direction to go there, for he opened the doors immediately and financially. Our funds secured and the airfare was provided. We arrived in Tijuana, Mexico, January the 10th. At this point, my pain level had gotten off the chart. Therapy started immediately, and we quickly found out how lost we were in the storm. We had more tests to be done to figure out how to navigate my treatment plan. Through a series of more testing, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and to the extent of the metastasis. Not to mention at times, I didn't think that I had the endurance to keep going. But we saw God move mountains, down to the room that I was in, to our awesome medical team of nurses and doctors, and my pain started to be more manageable, and there is so much more I could share. But while we were away in treatment, another devastating storm collided with ours. We lost our brother-in-law who we dearly loved, and I was not home. That was extremely difficult for me, to say the least. I wanted to be there for my sister and my family. My heart was aching. The storm was raging, and I felt like I was drowning at times. Thus, the waters in the pontoon coming over those things, like the waves crashing in, the dark skies. But let me say that God showed up time and time again in this journey. God, in the middle of the storm, has been faithful. We were blessed with financial support. We have an amazing support team here at FP Lex. My ladies' small group, our home group, and our family and friends. Prayer warriors everywhere lifting us up in prayer. We felt it. I couldn't have done this without the support of my family. Family and friends cleaned and prepared our yard and our home for our arrival. Mr. Jim and Mr. Mike built a ramp on my porch so that I can get in and out with ease. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Dad, and I know you're here again, you were like a lighthouse to Stephanie and I. Strength that we both needed. And Mom, you were the anchor on the home front with meals and kids. I love you both, and I thank God every day for my parents. We are blessed. Our storm has drawn our family closer together. We have seen God work in the lives of our children, and Chad and I grew closer. I am ever so grateful for you, love. And without you, I would never have made it. You were right there by my side with every step of the way, researching, making phone calls, just holding me, encouraging me to keep fighting. And I love you. We have experienced God's peace at a whole new level. Chad and I would listen to scriptures and worship songs, saying our verse, Matthew 4:17, every morning, and praying together constantly. There were times when I was in extreme pain and there was nothing he could do but to hold to me and pray and cry. We had to cling to his promises. It wasn't always easy. It was a minute by minute. We arrived back at home at February the 4th to continue with our home treatment plan. My treatments start at 5 a.m. and I work hard at them. We see progress every day. Mondays are my food prep days, and I am blessed to have Rebecca come over and prepare all my veggies to be juiced for the week. Rebecca, I love you dearly, friend. Your support in my healing is priceless. Thank you. God blessed me with a treasure when we became friends. Since being home, I have been able to gain back most of my independence. I am able to dress myself, get in and out of the bed, turn over on my stomach and side. That is a blessing. I can get in and out of the chair without any pain. And he continues to move those mountains with little steps each day. Now, I want to get up, and I want to walk, and I want to go right now and run. But God has something he's still teaching me. And I am thankful for those little steps. We will return to Hope for Cancer at the end of April for a follow-up. I will have blood work done soon, and I am being monitored here under great care. Is our family still in a storm? Yes, we are, but we see God in our storm. The wind and the rains, they have slowed down. The waves are not quite so high, and there are days when we see the sunshine. Some days are harder than others. Jeremiah 31, 3 through 4 says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. With unfailing love, I have drawn you to myself. I will rebuild you, my virgin Israel. You will again be happy and dance merrily with your tambourines. God is the one we have to turn to in our suffering. When I had a rough day with pain and my emotions, the song, Arms of Jesus, would play in my room. I would lay there and just try to imagine Jesus wrapping his arms around me. I literally put my arms around myself and envisioned Jesus' arms around me. My mama actually was the one who texted me, and she said, Tonya, just rest in him. And I'm thinking, how, God, do I rest in you? But this was what I did, and I would just sing those words aloud because he was the only one who could heal me and take that pain away. Not my husband sitting there, not the doctors or the nurses surrounding me, only Jesus. A few lines of that song. The miracles you've been waiting on feels 1,000,000 miles away. You've always been so strong. Now you're tired and losing your faith. But you don't have to face this alone. Healing's waiting when you let go. Fall into the arms of Jesus, into the arms of grace. Hang on to his promises when it's more than you can take. The mountains in your path, just ask and they will move. In his name, there's always hope. There are so many verses that I clung to, but Psalm 61, 1 through 3. Oh God, listen to my cry. Hear my prayer. From the ends of the earth, I cry to you for help when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the towering rock of safety, for you are my safe refuge. Into his hands, I have to put my life. And friends here today, I give God the glory for what he has done in my healing so far. And when the day comes when I'm able to get out of that chair and to walk freely without the assistance of crutches and others, when I can take those 2 stairs at a time, and I'm working hard to get there. I do ask that you will keep continuing to pray for our entire family. As we have a tough year ahead of us, we will be facing and navigating some new normals. But we can do it with God in our boat. My storm kind of reminds me of the disciples, and I kind of related. Well, I did relate. The Sea of Galilee is known for violent storms that come up suddenly. Thus, Jesus calming the storm. So in Mark 4:38, a fierce storm had come up, and Jesus was asleep. The disciples were scared, and they thought they were going to die. High waves were coming into the boat. Their minds grew fearful. They find him asleep, and they woke him, and they shouted, "Teacher, don't you care that we're going to drown?" I related, God, why cancer? I want to be here to see my children, my grandchildren, help with my niece and nephews. Why do we have to lose someone we love so early? But Jesus speaks to the winds and the waves. Silence. Be still. Suddenly, the storm stops and the waters are calm. The disciples, they were terrified, and they asked each other, they said, "Who is this man? Even the winds and the waves obey him." That man is Jesus. And when storms come into our lives, and they will, friend, and we feel like we're sinking and the fear creeps in, and we feel like there's no hope and that the raging storms and rains will never stop, we remember the words of David in Psalms 107, "Lord, help." They cried in their trouble, and he saved them from their distress. He calmed the storm to a whisper, and he stilled the waves. What a blessing was the stillness as he brought them safely into harbor. That's what I'm feeling with Jesus. I can trust God to bring peace and help me in the worst part of my storms with the willingness to just trust him with my life. He's not finished with me, and he's writing my story. It might not be the way I wanted it written, but I'm going to trust him. In my journal, I wrote, "What do I want God to do in my life?" And I have journaled those thoughts. And I'm going to trust God with what he wants to do with my life. God is in the boat with me no matter how violent the storm. He cares about every detail of my life, and he is a powerful God. And I want him to use me for God's glory. Some of my final thoughts are Psalms 40, 1 through 3. May I be like King David. I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me, and he heard my cry. He lifted me up out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. May we see what he has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord. Keep watching God work. My prayer is that in this storm, I continue to give him the glory. I want God to help me to wait well, to open my eyes to the purposes that he has and he wants to accomplish in me. And I want him to help me to trust his timing, knowing that his ways are always higher and better than mine.
Amen. Good job, Tonya. Amen. Faith that can move mountains has been their theme, and we're going to see God continue to do a great work.